I want to know what's going to happen next here. Because last Tuesday was bonkers.
Fucking
You're
And
You're welcome.
again, I will urge any of you. Now, if there's someone new here, it's okay. You don't need to have watched. You're like 99 episodes. Oh, I literally have to watch everything to enjoy the session. Don't worry. Just know that after a pretty intense chase sequence, the party
Max.
has breached into a giant tower in the middle of hell. Now,
Yes.
if you can envision that, you're good to go.
I will note that we were being chased by something that may or may not have looked like a very particular five-headed god dragon, and that there may or may not have been copious amounts of anti-gravity involved.
Yes.
I sent us to the year 2145. I'm sorry, just for a moment there.
See, this is where the catchphrase comes in. It's all Cypher's fault.
It's all Cypher's fault. It's all Cypher's fault. Okay.
Yes.
Sure,
You're welcome.
sure, because we would have gotten eaten by the big fish otherwise. You should be thanking me.
I should, but it's all your fault.
We just fought our way out of the big fish after being eaten.
And
That would have been fun.
now, Dark Wolf, before speaking as Casimir, is there something you've been working on as well that you wanted to talk about, or should we just keep going?
I'm currently working on an animatic. I'm probably 50% done. I'm not sure quite when I'll be done though, but it may be relevant soon.
All right. So there's a big project that Miss Awu here is putting her paws to, that I'm eagerly looking forward to. So yes, there's some lore bombs dropped, and if you've been around for a while, hey, maybe that helped bring you in. If you're new here, cool. There's revelations about past things and/or stuff. But just know that we had a Mad Max caper across the barren, open wasteland of hell, involving all sorts of crazy stuff. That ended with the group just taking a several ton, like, devil's short bus with all sorts of armor plating and everything, just right through these great, reinforced doors to a tower that has always seemed to loom in the distance, but now actually you're here. You have reached it. This is now a known point to you. Now, is there anything before we pick up where we left off, which was everyone kind of like getting out, assessing the damage, kind of shaking off any sort of headache you might have from banging around inside. Is there anything that you want to touch on or go over, or do you just want to delve right in?
That's a good question.
I will say one of my favorite visuals goes to you, Lethality, from the professor who had your eye stalks through the exterior oh shit handles on this thing in the back, because you were providing a magical boosties to this thing, and you just sort of like extended out a tendril and kind of gave like as much as an eyeball stalk can give like a thumbs up, because that's all anyone could see like from the side. If we're at the front looking back, you just see like, hey, and then you pull your tendril back to kind of.
Yep.
All right.
I have to say, that's probably one of the most creative uses of a spell that I've ever thought of. Just being like, hey, there's a spell that pushes stuff. Nitrous? Nitrous.
Yeah, I think it absolutely worked in that case in your favor. In fact, that did mechanically, not even just fluff-wise, because that helped pull a particularly low score into a success range, which is good because you probably wouldn't want to have Especially if you weren't going to do that idea I had where you put the hook through like the 2 eye holes of Bright and you kind of just use her as bait. It's like a kite, you know?
No, that sounds awful.
No, that's not what we're doing.
Well,
No, we
you know,
love
you don't
Bright.
have to.
We
Just
love Bright.
throw it out there. I mean, Bright Skull even said that she's, you know, immune to like 60% or something of the breath attack.
60%,
Yeah.
but not the other 40%, which is the ones that got used.
What are the odds?
It seems like the
I
odds are about
wonder.
40%.
40%, yeah. All right. Well then, we are going to move on as the Hulk of your infernal machine here. Kind of is like gives groans and clicks as it's kind of cooling off, and also just from things that have been compressed or are decompressing a little bit from having been smashed in through here. It is in quite a state, and let's bring you over now to where you're at. Now, this isn't exactly the size because you all should be smaller, but I wanted everyone to get the idea. Inside, and I'll zoom in on you all here. Inside, it is almost lightless. Definitely dim light, but it shouldn't be a problem for any of you in your forms. We have the 4 of you, and then this character right here is Big Guy, is number 2. The car is... I mean, maybe with the exception of like cover, your car is dead. It's not going to move anywhere. It's smashed up. It would need a lot of parts or work or magic infused into it to get it back. It looks like the steps of this place would be each of these that you see is about the width of a standard U.S. road, and you know, so in a sense, if it was still working, you might even be able to kind of drive this thing up to this next level. But I think you're going to have to hoof it. But yes, what you're seeing here is very, very large, very tall, very wide, very empty. The dragon that was pursuing you had done a quick maneuver to avoid smacking into the tower itself. While it was probably not responsible for it, at least given the physics of how the tail or something could have worked, the doors do close behind you.
We're all in it.
We are all in it.
So we're here.
Yep.
There's not as much going on as I expected.
I still expect there to be lots of things here that's we're not ready for. But it's time to move on, isn't it?
I think so.
Then let's get moving.
So, is there an obvious way to go?
No. I mean, aside from forward, because there's a little bit more of this flat area that then just sort of ends and with these very, very large doors that were bust through. There is this continuation in the ground level. There is a staircase over here. If it's too dark, I'm sorry, but it's moody. Because it does look like, even in this open lobby area, that there is its own, that there is this own second level. I don't know if, I mean, stairs may not affect a lot of you. Approximately 3/4 of you.
Maybe.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just gonna start going up.
Okay. Like just
Sounds like
just straight up.
Pretty much. I mean, unless there's something over me. In which case I would go around that.
Okay. Ultimately, yes. There is a roof. Or it
Well-
would probably be a ceiling, because it's being a tower. One person's ceiling is another person's floor.
Oh, so it's not just like a big hollow tower, it's like a... There's a floor, so there's another level above.
Yes. It is not immediately available here because such is the vastness of this receiving hall. But yes, up here there is a stone ceiling.
Oh. Okay. Well then, in that case, up isn't as interesting as I thought it was. I thought I could get to the top. Okay.
You can get to a top, maybe just not the top.
Yeah. Yeah, I wasn't prepared for multiple tops.
And that's after leaving the big top as well.
Multiple tops requires stairs, I think. I'm gonna start following the stairs.
Okay.
Upward.
You going over this way? Spectator professor?
I want to take, since I'm not actually going up, I want to take a quick look
Sure.
at the other end of the hall, just to see if there's anything interesting over there.
Yeah. While you're kind of going over and doing that, Professor.
So yeah, we're in a new room now. That's massive. There's got to be something to find around here. So I want to take a look around, start looking for anything of interest. You know, something that might tell us where we are, or where to go, or what might be here.
I'm doing the same, even though instinctually I think going up is probably the option.
Okay. Sure. You begin walking towards the wall in the staircase here, and Professor. Okay. There's going to be something I'll call for. It's a little bit more local to your starting area. Casimir, what is on your mind in this environment?
Not much. I'm probably looking for tracks.
Okay. Go ahead and roll a survival for me. 14.
14.
You are going to... Your actions are going to be twofold. And then we can go back and resolve from you some of the other people's actions. What you find, you go over here, and you are seeing more along the smooth areas of the steps. Great scratches against the stone. Not necessarily gouges out of it, but some kind of a claw has been scraped, going up and down these ramps. as well. Even with the 14, there are signs, though no further detail other than it just seems that there are signs of old, dusty, like even partial humanoid-sized footprints on the steps in the middle.
I would want to follow those humanoid footsteps.
Okay. Yeah, you can just make your way. You can make your way up and see that there are a great many of them, all over this old floor, and you're seeing further signs of some scuffing and footprints. Some of them barefoot, and others have some sort of a covering. But this is going to be your continuation into whatever happens next. You're just going to look for footprints and see what you can see.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So now this is going to go to you, Professor. It has been drawn to your attention that there are great scrapes on the stone, and there are a great many little, by comparison, little pitter-patters as well. You can... your silver dragon here seems to be on the hunt, kind of sniffing around, trying to Scooby-Doo this place. So, that, if you want to join in, I'm sure that could offer some sort of a bonus for an investigation into this activity, or if you want to continue and go elsewhere or look at something differently, you can do that as well.
I think an investigation does sound good, an investigation into that. One other very quick note that I would like to make, just as in combat this would take an action, so it's just 6 seconds.
Sure.
I'm just going to very quickly focus on my rod to regain a spell slot, so I've got a single spell slot sitting in the tank.
Gotcha.
And then I'll be coming over to do to help with the investigation. Have a look at it.
Okay.
I should be pretty good at that, considering normally thanks to my my demonic blessing, I am offered advantage on perception and insight checks. So I imagine if this is sight-based investigation,
yeah,
that I may be offered something similar.
Sure. Go ahead and while you have Casimir, Casimir seems to be doing a ground patrol here. We'll say that you're aiding because you're kind of the party's drone. So they'll sort of send you up, and you can look around, and make a perception at advantage.
Perception at advantage. 19 at the moment.
Okay.
That's not the worst, not the best. It's a 12.
I thought we called him that because of his talking.
Very funny, Brett.
Casimir's onto something, because there are great tracks that are scraped along this plane of stone. And you can see where, it must have been maybe a heavy traffic area, but time, curiously, for whatever that might mean here, time has shown that no one has walked here in a great while, as you can see it broadly, like we have a train tracker on the ground, but you can see it broadly from the sky. But it does seem like there were some great strides that are going back and forth through these very large openings and down these ramps out to the great doors to this tower.
So this looked to be some kind of heavy traffic area that has now hasn't had traffic in quite a long time.
Yeah, like super dusty old ruins. No one's been here in 11 billion years. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But people were here.
People were here at some point, but they're not now, and they haven't been for a while.
Yes.
So I'd be sharing this information as I pass by telepathically, as spectators have telepathy. It's pretty neat. Just noting that this was once an area of very heavy traffic, but nothing has passed through here in a long time.
Oh, strange.
Now let's zip over to our other flying friend, Bright. Bright, you were just kind of skimming along.
Yeah, I'm just looking to see if I can. I mean, a couple of things. First, I want to kind of see, like, how long does it go on for? What's the geometry of the place? And also keeping an eye socket out for any creatures that might be around here.
Yeah. Okay, tell you what, why don't you also
I'm not
give me
looking for skull prints.
you spring with the jaw. Makes an interesting track. Go ahead and you can make a perception as well.
I forgot to open my character sheet. Okay, there we go. 9. Yeah, that's typical for me.
This place is big.
Oh, good.
Now you are seemingly able to actually move inside of it. Not that weird kind of thing that happened in the canyon where you just kept rising up and it seemed like the edge of the canyon above you was always like 200 feet up. You are making, lateral progress. You're hovering however much off the ground that you are. You can also see that when you get to the end here, that this is, it's not a T-junction, but there is an intersecting hallway that turns to the right and goes off in this direction. That hallway, however, is thinner as it accommodates pretty much one arch's width. So a one arch width goes off to the side, but it does seemingly end in these 3 arches. There's a lot of this very primitive, very stern stonework that's made. Everything's just kind of dusty and when I say grimy, it's not like there's like dirt or like bat poo everywhere or something like that. In fact, there's no signs of bats or even insects or other things that might be creeping and or crawling around in here, as you'd be wont to do. But yeah, there is a tunnel that does go on for a ways, and it looks like this tunnel has a slight curve to it because after a while it curves out of sight. Well, actually, your dark vision would probably end before you saw that. But whatever, you're a smarty pants. You understand that towers can be curved, and so you see a slight curve before you'd have to actually go down the tunnel further. As it stands right now, I'm going to say that you are over here, and you are still within. You're still within eye range of the others.
Okay.
Is there anything that you want to cast, do, shout out, telepathy?
Yeah, I can't do the telepathy thing. That's not one of the flame cell powers. Maybe I would just... I don't know. Where's everybody else going? Do they seem to be... Like, are they heading upstairs, or are they milling around in the Great Hall?
At this point, Mordecai has made his way over to the base of the stairs, and these two are kind of doing are just kind of like working to discover the whatever they're looking at on the floor.
Okay. I guess I'll just kind of shout out then. say, there's another tunnel that's down here. I don't know where it goes. Because I don't want to go too far away by myself. Especially if it's one of those, non-Euclidean hallways that seem to be so common around here.
Your voice echoes in this vast chamber. Which actually makes you louder without having to use magic.
Yeah, that was fun. Echo. Echo.
Now, over to you, Mordecai. And if you want number 2 to do anything in particular, I mean, he has a particular set of skills. Investigating may not be one of them, but otherwise, he can stand by your infernal van and just kind of scratch his head and try and bang stuff with a wrench until it works. So effectively on standby or whatever, he's not like, oh, let me go with you. He's at your command. All right. So Mordecai, you are walking. You're walking over, and as an musical artist, you can appreciate the acoustics of this place, especially as you are looking up at the echo of Bright. And as you do so, I know that you have a very high passive. What are you at, like 27 for your passive?
27. Yeah.
Okay.
I have heightened senses, y'all.
For your passive, I am going to say that it does look like, in the patterns on the walls, which have their own little arches and niches, it does look like there are some kind of a stylized engraving, pattern or something along those lines. But when you get over to it closer, maybe you could explore that more if you wanted to. But it's nothing that you can see that it's there, and you probably wouldn't have noticed it if you weren't as keenly sensed as you were. Now, Professor, you're kind of aiming your eyes downward, so you're seeing a pattern just in a different direction. However, Mordecai, I am actually going to call for either an investigation or a nature from you as you look over to the echoing Bright.
Well, both are the same.
Oh. Then which would you like to invoke, as they might have similar results but phrased differently, or you might get one clue one way or another clue another?
I'll go nature. Why not?
Okay.
Blah. That's gross.
Well, yeah, I mean, a 9, but...
Still gross.
Bright looks purple to you? Maybe like a lavender? Definitely not pink.
Which is normally pink. I'm gonna cast Dancing Lights, because it's been a while since I've cast that.
Oh, sure. Are you
do the
manifesting it
lights
as a
also
little,
take
as like a singular dude, or you have the little balls going around?
Little balls.
Okay.
Do each of them kind of take on a blue hue?
How did you manifest them?
They're
Just
just
as-
like popping in front of me.
Oh, I don't know if you had a preferred color that you were wanting them as,
Just
but
white light.
okay. Yeah, they have kind of a cool blue to them.
Huh. That's interesting. A blue place.
Yeah.
How weird. That's very odd. I kind of point that out to Bright from afar.
Yo, Perp. Or you just call her like Lil Perp or something like that.
He doesn't use names like that. Her name is Bright.
Bright, you absolutely can confirm. You sort of like guide your flames down to look at them, and you have more of a lavender
Huh.
than a pink.
So, I mean, it's a pretty color.
Everything kind of takes a blue hue down here, or up
Yeah.
wherever
So-
we are.
Yeah, I'll look at my spellbook bag that I'm carrying. Does it look blue too?
Yeah.
Oh, how interesting. That's interesting. Let's see here. I want to do a thing.
Casimir is absolutely radiant with this light, and the professor is kind of a weird teal.
How bizarre.
Huh.
That's the same kind of thing that's happened in the city, right?
Yes.
Everything kind of took a specific hue based
Yeah.
on who was influencing things.
Yeah.
How weird.
So, we must be in,
The
You know.
Abishai's territory.
well, don't say it. Maybe that doesn't matter anymore.
Maybe it doesn't.
We'll find out shortly.
Yep.
Isn't that who we want to summon anyway?
It is, but it's just kind of interesting.
Name.
What?
Okay.
Why didn't we just try saying name? I think we put too much effort into this.
Didn't you want to be a big badass?
I got one.
Mordecai, I would like you to make a straight up perception now.
Straight up perception.
Yep, this is an active one. 30?
Ooh, that's
There
a
we go.
30.
Not bad. All right, you're
Whoa.
you're making this connection. All right, well, that could be, this coloration could very well be you're chasing after Abishai, who is blue. And as you're looking around, being the radiant and colorful person that you are, you do see that, you know what? There's, if it was a coloration of the sky or something. I mean, this is a very tall place. I mean, maybe just the atmosphere or something matches whatever weird, not physics this place goes to. But there do seem to be windows going to the outside. And now that you're looking up and looking out, while it is very dark in here, there is this blue light coming through. You swear that you see the sun. Now, you're not sparkly, but you're looking through a window up and out, and you're seeing the sun, and that's nothing that you've seen here. Well, since you've arrived in hell. And as you're doing that, the room goes from dimly lit to near dark as a great shape just passes very slowly in front of the windows, but never stops. And after a minute or two, it seems to be gone, and the room goes back to being dimly lit blue. What I would like from all of you, I want each of you to give me a perception.
It's not sound-based, is it?
It is, Casimir. I'm sorry.
Oh, yay. Okay, good. Yeah, 21.
Yep.
Hey,
11.
A 19 is a bad roll for me.
11 is a typical roll for me. Actually, that's above average.
Yeah.
Mine's is sharp.
Professor, do you have a, or did you click it but it didn't show up, or?
Yeah, clicked it and didn't show up. So let me try that again. 24.
24.
Much better.
Okay.
This had to actually show up for me.
Mordecai, the shape itself is concerning, and you can see it. You can even sort of hear a faint rumble, even through the massive stonework here. Casimir, you hear a familiar, almost a rhythm, as this large shape is passing by. And despite your impaired hearing, you remember it from when you were on board a great vessel in the harbor. One that had massive engines, that had pumps, that had steps going up and down, had a great door that opened up, almost like a mouth to a whale. And what you're hearing is a familiar hum. Professor, you are getting that, and your extra little bit for being the goodest boy and having the highest perception is that the shape of the thing outside, in your mind, as you see it and you're thinking about what could this be, and you're going over the possibilities, this seems to match that tanker that you were on. Or if it's not that tanker, you're hearing the rhythm of those sort of displacer engines. And
Soul displacer engine.
that is a Shadowheart airship, a very big one, that is very slowly just sort of passing casually past those windows.
So, I don't know if this has actually been... that you'd actually had anything built for this in particular, Maddie. But there might be some mumbling from Cypher about basically giving the airship a class.
Okay.
So... something like, that's an Imperator class airship that just went by the window just there.
That's fine. Understood.
It would make sense as having the Shadowheart history specialty that he would probably know a little bit about about the different classes of airship one might find under the command of said empire. The military is a big part of history, after all. What with the fact that they have done militarist expansion in the past. But so I hear the hum. Do I get a glimpse of it?
Only a silhouette through the window, though there is actually signs of a sun outside too, though it is tinted blue.
Is that a familiar silhouette?
It's I wouldn't say it's a familiar silhouette to you. No.
Okay. Because I just had a thought, out of character, that it could be the Repentless.
The Repentless!
This would be way too big.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Repentless was like a patrol craft. It was made out of a patrol craft. Yeah, so,
This altar. Okay.
Mordecai, in fact, everyone would hear telepathic mumblings about, was that an Imperator-class Shatterheart airship that just passed by the window?
I don't know what that class of ship looks like.
Oh, do you remember the massive ship in the harbor?
Oh, right.
Yes, that and possibly that, and an eye stalk would gesture to where it passed by. Are known as Imperator class ships. They're absolutely massive.
Oh boy. I know that hum though.
Yes, as do I, and that is concerning.
Whatever we do, should we go up against a machine like that, you don't hit the engines. They explode and ravage everything in their path.
Yes, full
Happen to a
of
friend of ours.
yes. Full of the souls of the damned. I am aware.
Right. They ripped her apart.
As a bunch of vengeful spirits trapped within a screaming engine of, well, whatever it's made out of. I was never actually able to find that out, but as a bunch of until very recently trapped but very exceptionally vengeful spirits would.
Yeah.
Out of character, I make an obligatory Necrons reference here.
Well, that's something to contend with if it's here.
If it's here, that means there's a way out.
If it's here, that means the Shadowheart's here.
Yes, but if it's here, it means that we have a way out. A good way out. It also means that if we were able to capture one of these ships, that we would also be sitting upon a veritable wealth of firepower.
Bright, you're kind of all the way over here. Do you wanna go and like smush your face against the window?
I thought I was like on the other side of the hall. I didn't realize I was involved in this at all.
Well, it would have gotten like you would have noticed it would have gotten totally dark. You made a perception as well, but so like you would have seen like the lights go out and come back on again, and some giant shadow creeping across the row of windows. But it wouldn't have. I mean, that would be the description that you would get as Bright.
Yeah.
But yeah, I
well,
mean, you are away from that discussion, but it's.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking for anything interesting that's happening, so that would certainly be an interesting thing that's happening.
Okay. Package.
Yep. Oh, that's great. But no, Bright, as you come into telepathic range, you would be receiving the same information that Cypher just gave Mordecai.
Okay.
Uh.
So how well can I see it since I'm at the window?
It is still a silhouette for the most part. You might be able to make out some details because you're very close. However, while there's no glass or nothing at least that's glowing magical, there is just a point where you stop and you can go no further into this window crevice. So you very much smush up against this blue-tinted barrier. Unfortunately, there hasn't been any kind of a a dragon to give you a riddle. But the good news is, you don't take 1 point of magical bludgeoning damage.
Oh, that's nice. So, so it's like a window that I can't go through.
Correct. And everything kind of has this blue filter to it.
Yeah. Okay.
And here's the good news. I will not ask you to make a perception. Instead, you can make either a history or an investigation. And, there we go. All right.
Oh,
Look at that.
green
30
number.
history. That's a green number.
Yeah. All the history.
Well, it's more of a teal, like an aquamarine, given the current circumstances.
No one roll a purple.
Bright, as you are recalling, like, because you're seeing vague shapes through the window, you're looking around, and this, you're pretty sure that you're actually looking out over the city that surrounds the tower. But that city has gone through some changes. There's buildings, or maybe additions on buildings, that don't fit. And you are also seeing dotted even distantly through this blue tint, you're seeing other floating aircraft. Some are small and going by somewhat quickly, and others are just kind of lumbering through. And it does appear that there are some pipes that are coming out of the tower and going out into the city itself.
How about that?
Oh.
Yeah, so it's the same kind of plumbing probably that they were trying to set up
Yes.
in the yeah.
This must be the hell side of the operation.
Yeah, one could draw that conclusion.
So they have a way of passing between the material and hell to build the other side of the operation through the basically massive gash that was torn in literally.
I mean, that could potentially, like, be really bad, right? I don't know anything about planar travel, but that could be bad, right?
Yeah, potentially. And we don't necessarily know that this is the same, like, that this is the same connection, right? It could just be the same kind of connection.
Yeah. But it does show, at the very least, that something like that is possible.
Well, of course it's possible, because they were doing it. I think it's more interesting that now we know, like, they had to have established a relationship with someone on this side to get the permission to set it up, and now we know who it's with. So that's good to know.
Destroy the fabric of reality.
Well, we don't really know that, right? I mean,
everything from every other plane wants to destroy or own the material plane.
well, but not really destroy. I mean, really own. Destroy, not so much.
By the way, Bright, from your view, because you can see this, this would indicate that if it's the same tower from the same city, you, despite being in the lobby, I mean, you floated up quite a ways. This is a massive, massive place. But that would mean that the brick wall wasn't completed all the way to the top where that weird darkness ovoid was. Or it was taken up as far as it could go, because that actually extended out beyond the borders of the tower. That means that you're like what could very well be above you is that darkness, like on the next floor up.
Well, it could be several floors up.
Well,
I mean,
From our perspective.
yes. But yeah, you can have a decent, it's your, package, package. Or you're sort of like a dog waiting for someone to come home as you're going window to window here. Ooh, what's this? Ooh, what's that? And yeah, that's looking eerily familiar. But also, you're cross-referencing. You haven't been... I mean, you're doing some quick math in your not brain. This is kind of like what you saw with the repair of Oiho, where, I mean, you went down into the pit, yeah, you felt like you got a good night's sleep, but come on, a city's not going to rebuild itself in a day. Some fairy tale city called Rome wasn't even built in a day, and that's legend. That place never existed. But what you're seeing...
Now, Ebar, on the other hand, that one was definitely real.
But what you're seeing, though, is the fact that a good amount of time had to have passed for there to be such infrastructure and changes. As we're not just talking that, a hotel was bought out and turned into the Wild Cherry with some red and black aesthetics. We're talking, there's more. There's actually been an investment in the facades. There's been additions, which could end up being, these pipes or some other structural things. And there's also quite a hovering presence. Now, when you left, it's not that there wasn't, but this just seems to be a very casual... they're flying over casually. When your last interaction with airships was pretty much an attack in the harbor on them, from a group of rebels not, wanting to, Shadowhar, get out of here kind of a thing. And airships flying over were, panic and concern. There was a whole parade following the ones that were carrying the pipes in initially to just put down next to the site to start installing. And now now from your point of view, you're looking at a couple of these pipes coming off. So, back to you all.
Are we wanting to proceed?
Yes, how do we proceed? I would say that I would be able to help as an emissary to the Shadowhar if that is actually them and not people who they stole technology from. But eye stalk gesture to the fact that I am nothing but a floating eyeball with eye stalks.
So
Yeah.
So they
Not the
stole
kind-
this tech. Hang on. So they stole this technology from someone?
It's possible that they may have reverse engineered something else. That's a theory and nothing more.
Okay.
I mean, how else does a civilization go from not having anything to having ships that run on tortured souls?
Right. The Shadowhard haven't been developing this for very long, have they?
I actually don't know that. Would I be able to roll a history with my specialization to?
What are you trying to pursue again?
The history of the Shadowhari airships.
We'll say it at disadvantage. Yeah.
Alright. It's a
10? They're... I mean, it was something that they had been so secretive of because there was no contact between the Empire to the northeast and Mesotopia as a region for such a long time. So they only really widely became known. They widely became known in every, everyone was talking about under threat of war. Now, there was evidence of airships, and you found that evidence because of reasons for your character. You found evidence of older airships, though none of them seem to be as grand as the that Imperator that you were pointing out before.
Yes.
Those
Those older airships, did they run on the same engines or similar engines? Or was it too destroyed to see?
They might have. You didn't necessarily find anything that was vastly different. Or, to us in our understanding, it's not like... Upon reflection, you found helicopter blades. But you did find the old wreckage of an airship in that particular part that you were Indiana Jonesing around earlier in your career.
Yes.
And
so...
it presumably had the same parts, but it didn't seem as large. It could have been more rudimentary, but of course at the time that might have been like the cutting bleeding edge of that technology.
Yeah. So my response would be that I have found earlier references to this airship technology, but they were very small. They weren't anywhere near as large as that one. In fact, would it be fair to make a comparison between that and one of the smaller patrol ships, one of the smaller escorts that the tanker in the harbor had?
Yep.
Yeah.
And
it was
and
closer
then
in
also
size to one of the tankers.
Also cross-reference that with the fact that if these sort of like troop transports, which was more along the lines of what the Repentless was made out of, was a troop transport, slash scout, I guess, but I mean it actually held people in the hull. What you found was maybe slightly smaller, wouldn't hold as much, and it wouldn't have been as common given the cargo or the details that you found. The importance of that ship was presumably greater.
Okay. So, yeah, I'd be sharing that I did find in my travels, I found a smaller ship, much smaller than that one. Even smaller than one of the escorts that was in the harbor with the Imperator tanker. And this ship was a lot more important, as if it were rarer. So it may not necessarily be that they stole the technology, but maybe some access to this place has made it easier. Some access to this place made it easier to produce engines of that size and to produce larger ones, like, and a gesture with an eye stalk up to the window.
Yeah, well, the obvious candidate would be the large supply of souls of the damned.
I was just about to say that.
Which means, but the question is where would they get the containment protocols and vessels and materials in the first place? Because it doesn't seem natural. Unfortunately, I don't have answers to those questions due to the fact that this airship technology has been kept secret for a very long time. There was a very...
Yeah. Maddie, while I was ruling my fiefdom...
Yes.
How was the population change? Was it... was there population increase or decrease? Or Were there mysterious disappearances other than the ones that we expected as a result of the pit activity and gribblers and things? Like how?
No, I mean your neck of the woods was stable. If anything shifted more obviously, it was the demeanor of the people who live there. As for a population increase, I don't know if that was necessarily anything that was. I don't know if that was necessarily something important to Bright. So, quasi speaking, like I'm straddling in and out of character. Bright may not exactly be too, like matronly or motherly. Instead, every day you got greeted, people interacted with you. So the demeanor of people changed, but there wasn't a noticeable like population boom.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, Evil Bright isn't all that motherly. But, okay. So it just seemed pretty stable then. I mean, I would think that if there had been a change, it would have come up at least in, like, hey, we have too many people and not enough apartments,
Yeah, everyone just seemed to be kind of, content. There'd be little things here and there that you would get to decide on, and it seems like those issues would work themselves out after, a little bit of application, because people finally were listening to you. And
yeah, that was good.
But yeah,
I did like that part.
It was more a demeanor or a change in demeanor of the populace, and well, as you saw with the greater reconstruction effort, building back more in this style, this Bright Skull style.
Sure. Okay, so that's not the answer then. Okay, so yeah, so from the time I spent here, it didn't really seem like the number of damned souls was particularly booming or shrinking. It just seemed like we had a pretty steady state number. So, but this isn't the only city in all of hell, and maybe the damned souls were coming from somewhere else. I mean, we know that.
I mean, damned souls would imply that they're maybe sentenced here from elsewhere.
Yeah, it could be that. Like maybe the intake was diverted.
An afterlife sort of thing.
Well, there are theories on that, based upon it's very disputed.
I mean, in many religions, you go to a bad place if you're a bad person.
There was a theory that depending on what deity you worshipped, if you worshipped one at all, that you would go to be with them wherever it is that deity resides. That's conjecture, truly. I am not sure.
I like to think that there is an afterlife.
Other than that, there is some thought that maybe the moral and ethical standings that you carry in life determines where you go later if you do not worship a deity specifically. But I cannot be sure of these things. It's all conjecture after all, and it's conjecture about what happens after you die, so it's very rare that someone would be able to speak with the dead, such a thing would be able to tell you what happens. But at the very least, what we could be thankful for is that there are places beyond the material, very obviously. Here we are.
And they're getting souls from somewhere.
Maybe these towers are part of it.
Maybe.
Extract resources from a place that isn't reachable by normal means, and
until somebody stops you otherwise, you have an unlimited supply.
Basically.
So we're putting a stop to all of this, right?
No. And there is a reason for that. Halting the production of such things would cause such a large destabilization that nothing would be the same on the other side. Everything would change, and not necessarily for the better. In fact, you would
Shadowheart's
most likely.
muscling in on Mesotopia
Yes, but if you
because
take
they have an unfair advantage.
and that is all well and good, but imagine they live in a frozen wasteland. I believe that the pipeworks that they've laid in their cities up there connect to this place. What happens if you cut that off? They get even more desperate. You would be taking Mesotopia out of the frying pan and into the fire.
I suppose.
You see why that would be a major problem.
I don't
Instead of-
understand what's.
I will share bits and pieces of some visions that I saw of the capital city of the Shadowhar Empire. Imagine a great metropolis in the middle of a frozen wasteland with lights of energy pointed across the streets. Pipework providing heat to buildings in a frozen wasteland. Now, I can't exactly tell you where this heat comes from, but from what we've seen in Mesamaska, it would make sense that maybe they're tapping similar connections to the one in the middle of Mask of Horns. Yes, that would be a fair assumption to make.
Well, sure. I mean, heat is one of the things that's easy to get here, but it seems like a lot of trouble just to go through for heat. There's so many. I mean, if you have any magical power at all, you can just make heat. And
Yes, but it's not just heat, it's energy. Large amounts of energy. Everything in this city runs on this energy. But imagine, if you will, what would happen if suddenly that disappeared and the cold crept in to take back what it believes it's owed.
well,
When a militarist nation like the Shadowhar Empire loses the one thing keeping them in the spot that they are without coming forward, too much at least, because they're looking to annex. That's very obvious. From their movements, they're looking to annex. What happens if you cut off the one thing keeping them safe up in the northeast?
Arguably reclaim. But annex can work in a sense too.
Well, annexing it is reclamation. It's just reclamation by reintegration rather than reclamation by ousting what's there and replacing it.
But they are ousting what's there and replacing it.
Through gentrification, rather than having soldiers marching through the streets shooting citizens left, right, and center.
But it's just as insidious.
Oh, no doubt about that. But imagine what would happen if you cut off their heat, cut off their energy, forced them to move southeast, because if they didn't, they would die. You would corner an animal. That is the basics of what would happen. It would be the equivalent of cornering an animal.
So what do we do?
And we leave it be. We find a way to tap it ourselves.
Mordecai, with what the professor said, you might single-handedly be able to destroy the Shadowheart Empire. A vast majority of it.
Well, I definitely like the idea of tapping it, but I don't want to tap it unless I can understand it a little better. We still need to learn more about it. Otherwise, it won't be safe. Well, what if we tap it and it feeds back and explodes? You know, something like that. I wouldn't want that.
Of course.
At least not if I was there.
You wouldn't do well to try and enter into such an endeavor recklessly. But we can't destroy it. To do so, we would be killing hundreds of thousands of people. People who have... Not necessarily.
Don't they want to convert all of their people into vampires? They don't have to worry about the cold anymore?
They revere vampirism, yes. But... no, they wouldn't convert everyone, and would you like to know why?
You still need food.
You still need sustenance for one, and for two, if you are to be revered as some kind of god, who will revere you if everyone is just like you?
Yeah, but the elder vampires are always revered by the younger ones. Or is that a different game?
I suppose power would come into play in that regard.
Yes, and that's the last thing you want. That's the last kind of dynamic you want to force upon a people like the Shadowheart.
Bright, may I use you to stir the pot further?
Potentially.
Okay. I would like you to roll... You know what, give me another history, but you can take this at advantage.
25.
25.
So I'm a little
go ahead.
fuzzy on the changing like slideshow that we're looking at.
Scenes of... the professor told you that he was telling you about his research about the Shadowheart Empire. I'm just showing you little snippets of that empire. Because he'll explain the things that he's seen and the things that he knows. So this way you can visualize it.
Okay.
As this topic is brought up, and given what you had set out to do, and even with your 9, Bright, there's something that you were just having a tough time scratching an itch, and when you don't really have hands, that's I mean, ugh.
I have a mage hand.
Well, you finally remember you got a mage hand, and you get that good, like, one of your floofs starts going like this as you're... There we go. This tower, while it's certainly built for much in a much grander scale, has some design elements that are similar to those that you remember seeing among the dwarves that were living in Browbeat.
Okay.
And dwarves aren't considered to be native to Mesotopia. Dwarves
Also
are
true.
considered to be native to the Northeast. However, Professor, history at advantage.
Of course. 15.
15? The dwarves are a part of the Shadowheart Empire, but it's more like an uneasy truce. The Shadowheart presumably rolled in after them and sort of set up shop around their mountains, under and through which they live. So the dwarves can't do much out. The Shadowheart can't go too much in. And so, well, the one on the outside at least is claiming the land as their own, but are allowing the dwarves to exist there. The dwarves that live in Browbeat and other small enclaves in Mesotopia are refugees. They are holdovers, perhaps in some way. But, yeah, there's not a lot of them here because most of them, I mean, if you were to escape from Shadowheart, that's a task in itself, let alone making your way all the way to the southwest into Mesotopia.
Where do you go?
If
There's only one way you can go.
If you tipped the balance, that might mean the dwarves could... Mordecai, I'm gonna give you some of that gold fever, that alignment shifting thought here. Ironically, and it's with dwarves. If the dwarves got an advantage over the Shadowheart because you shut off their heat, that might actually mean the downfall of the tiefling and human occupation, and the dwarves would probably even participate, you might hope, in the overthrow, or even the retaking or the reconquering or the repurposing of those buildings. You could probably start a civil war inside the Empire by flicking a switch, very metaphorically. Comma, but, and I always have to throw that in there, the professor was making a very interesting point that, are you willing to sacrifice the lives of hundreds of thousands, maybe 1 million people, and therefore balanced against what? Or what would happen if that were to take place? So these are all thoughts that I'm throwing out there. They're on the table for you all to think about and to play with and bap around like little cats. But yeah, kind of zapping back over. There is there are some very interesting elements between the construction here and, well, you got to see a little bit of dwarvish stuff. Bright, more particularly, because you very much interacted with them more directly.
Yes, of course.
Mordecai, you don't speak Dwarven, do you?
No.
No. Okay. I don't think you would have performed for them.
No.
I don't think any of you did.
Specifically Mesomaskin tour.
Yeah.
Yep. But no, sci-fi says you make your people desperate and they will do anything. And I do mean anything to see their objective through. Tell me, Mordecai, have you ever heard of something called the Scorched Earth tactic?
Just in the military. What?
Oh.
Whoa!
Ah!
Oh!
We lost you.
Oh no!
Strangely enough, I didn't lose any of you.
You, suddenly the professor brings up, have you heard of the Scorched Earth theory? And Mordecai's just like, peace. And...
Nope. Bye.
Mordecai's comment was, I'm not well versed in what goes on with the military. I don't know what that means.
It's very simple. It comes down to a childish thought, actually. If I can't have it, then nobody can.
Oh, it's not childish at all. It's a tactic. You set the fire to the land, and then it's hard to advance through because everything's been burned and there's no food and the water's polluted and it makes the land. It's not just about denial because the land will recover someday. It's more of a short term. You know, we have to destroy it so that they can't use it against us.
Welcome real quick to Nerdalopedia and everyone who came in the raid. Welcome. We are having some pretty intense revelation and a very fun discussion here. We're doing very well and having fun. At least I am. I hope you all are too. Bright, real quick, do you have prestidigitation?
Of course.
Okay. Over this discussion and kind of looking around here, you have an extra unique perspective because you are up even higher than the others. You've been kind of smushing up against the window, and you also have this spell that, I mean, for not having hands, this comes in handy. And using some of your prestidigitation around these pillars, around the windows and such, you notice that there is script similar to what you saw in that dwarven cookbook.
Oh, interesting.
That seems to be engraved, but it's under a layer of just forgottenness, like dust. That there's some dirt, and I don't know. Maybe there's an occasional like cobweb. Not again that there's anything actively creeping or crawling around in here. But your prestidigitation kind of, and there's like almost a little cloud of just ancient time. And you are seeing a very old dwarven. You're seeing a dwarven script. At least it's a version of it. Some of the symbols look a little bit different than you remember seeing them, but such is the age of this place, perhaps. And you're definitely getting from the drawing style and just some of the other little things as you were kind of like, you're still small enough you could kind of peek around the dwarves and you looked into the house. There's just that kind of art aesthetic to this place.
So it looks like it's actually writing then.
Writing, and there's like carvings and symbols. Might be decorative, but you've only uncovered a little bit of
Mordecai, do you still have the Helm of Comprehend Languages?
I thought you had that.
Yeah,
What?
no, you did
What?
have that.
Okay, so I guess that's gone then.
I do have
okay.
a solution.
What's that?
If you tell me about it, I can read it.
If I tell you about it? What do you need me to tell you?
That it's there.
Well, of course it's there.
Yeah, so you can mention
I don't
that
think
it's
she
there,
would
right?
not point it out.
Yeah, that's why. That's why I
Red's
was
not the
calling
type
for.
to keep secrets like that.
Yeah, that's why I was calling for the Helm of Comprehend Languages. But if you can read Dwarven, come on up.
Yeah, I could read all writing.
Oh,
Pretty great.
yeah, I used to be able to do that too, but not right now.
No, I will go up there and
That was before you got greedy.
read it. And while I am,
It's a
I'll be,
divination feature, but I don't have it with a different subclass.
whilst I'm up there reading it, I would also be telling Mordecai about a little bit about the scorched earth tactic, and to imagine for a moment what would happen if someone or someone's was desperate enough to scorch the earth using the engines of the airships.
But isn't that what everything else is doing too? Like the Fae? The vampires, I guess? With the Shadowheart? They're trying to assimilate.
Yeah, but that's
Indirect
different
is
from
everything
that.
that is.
That's different. They're trying to assimilate everything that is.
Professor, so
corner
far
the
as you're
Shadaha-
talking and kind of casually scrolling through, these appear to be the names of dwarves. In the immediacy, this is what you're picking up because you haven't exactly gone over everything. But it seems like that there's names that are here.
That's interesting.
We came here to fight the Avishai.
Yes.
That's what we're doing, right? We're not backing down on that, are we?
No.
Okay. 'Cause that was our goal. Find Jaden and take them home.
Yes, and we are still in 100% agreement on that.
Unless it turns into that the Avishai are the ones behind all of the Shadowheart shit, then we can't. According to you.
If they're the ones behind all the Shadowheart things, I think there are more options than simply cutting everything off, i.e. put somebody else in power.
Well, that's kind of hypothetical at this point.
Yes.
Let's
is.
figure out. So the writing is just the names of dwarves. Any famous dwarven heroes, or is it like a stamp? Like sometimes artists and builders will put their signature on something that they build. I know that's a thing for dwarves.
Yeah. Is it a
Maker's Mark.
Yeah.
That's a good question to ask. Is this like a stonemason's maker's mark, or is this closer to like a memorial?
It might be both. These are a bunch of names. They are stacked on top of each other, so these are presumably the names of the individuals who helped to build and or carve this place. But there's no... Without spending more time, and I guess you have as much or as little time as you have, you're just reading a list of names. There's not really... In Mesotopia, there's not exactly a lot of dwarven lore. I mean, they're known to exist. They're sort of a far-off people. So there's probably some sort of like a romantic, like a fairy tale, or whatever. I mean, you probably have like the equivalent of people in Mesotopia that are like weeaboos for dwarves. The people from a far-off land. Oh man, I really like their drawing style, and et cetera, et cetera.
Dwarf.
Yeah. Dwarfaboos. And so, I mean, there might be something like a very popular story that is widely considered to be fiction, but maybe somewhere in there's a grain of truth. Like some sort of like an Arthurian legend, or maybe not as grandiose that there was like a dwarf that ruled over Mesotopia, or even an individual place. Actually, you know what? I take that back. I would say in Mesomasca, there is especially because Mesomasca has the largest population of dwarves in Mesotopia. I would say that there's almost like a Paul Bunyan style figure, someone who was in the mountains there in the Browbeats, had a hand in helping to carve that multi-faith monastery up at the top, and might have even had a hand in guiding the landlords, which, if you recall, is a series of statues that's carved out of the mountains towards the south. So yeah, I'll say that there's, the story can vary, but that there is a dwarf that sort of upkept some of these traditions, and it seems to be that the tieflings might have taken it over. But Bright, you were up there when the professor was reading off the names.
Yeah.
And
right
you also were there when you met some of these more simple tieflings. Now that you're hearing it spoken, even in another accent, and you're thinking back to the other dwarf that you met. Those tieflings speak Infernal, but have a dwarvish accent if the professor's pronunciation is correct. Like old dwarven at that.
Okay, I'm confused about what tieflings you're talking about.
There were tieflings that you met on your way from the Fey Cave that were hauling in food supplies, or was it stones? And actually, because one of you had talked with them, it was Jacob, and someone else I think was more directly with him.
Mordecai had actually spoken with him because those were the two tieflings that helped transport Celine's body to the ossuary.
Yeah.
Sound of feasting.
I believe that you were around the party for that, Bright, or were you off doing something with Mr. Halver?
No, I was with the party, but
okay.
I might have not been with the game.
Okay.
I might have missed that episode. That's the only thing I can think of because I don't remember this.
Well, you did.
That was the thing that happened.
You did hear this. This in our terms, like Amish tieflings, just sort of old world tieflings. They spoke Infernal, but with kind of an off accent. A Dutch accent in a sense. But with the way that the professor is pronouncing and enunciating these dwarven names, you're getting that vibe, similar to how the tieflings in the south were talking. And of course, they're the ones that for hundreds of years now have been carving out giant statues in the side of the mountain.
Oh, I'm fairly certain I would know that, being a Mesomascan native.
Yeah, you would have heard tales. Again, if we're chalking it up to like a Paul Bunyan folk figure.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, when the information comes down, because I don't know, I don't think the professor is exactly shouting everything, but ultimately,
telepathic
can confirm pronunciation, because you haven't exactly heard a lot of Dwarvish in your life, despite you being as traveled, because there's just not a lot of dwarves. And they assimilate with the culture that they're living with more than, like, they keep their own, language and practices in their houses. But an interesting connection that it seems like there's a grain of truth in that this dwarven figure did exist. And it seems like these very simple tieflings have carried on some kind of a mission, or some kind of a faith, or some kind of a directive to carve these statues into the side of the mountain.
I would just like to make a point of the Shadowheart aren't just Canadians anymore. They also have fusion parts of the Roman Empire, what with all of the annexing of faith and mythology and things that they've done. Because you know how the Romans literally just bit the entire Greek mythology and changed it?
To survive, you gotta stay on top.
To survive, you've got to stay on top. And anything that's better than what you had, you steal and make your own.
And that's exactly what they've done. Well, it's all very enlightening. We have a mission. don't we? We're getting sidetracked again.
We do. But it's not a bad thing that we're looking through all of this for the simple fact of, as
Oh,
we've
no.
very obviously seen from other previous knowledge that was recorded by your significant other, and things that we found during our time here, that information seems to have come in real handy in actually understanding what's going on, thus allowing us to make more informed decisions. Wouldn't you say?
Right.
You know, Professor,
Well-
it's just a lot easier to kill all the bad guys, but you have to bring this morality and consequences BS into this.
Oh,
I
it's
thought
not
I
a
was the
matter.
one who was immoral.
And for the bad guys, too, you're working for the wrong team, Professor.
It's not a matter of morality. It's a matter of ethics.
Ethic.
For you see, I am lawful evil. Out of character.
Yeah.
Lawful evil. But no, it's more a matter of before, as Cypher is telling them that yes, we should move on. They're like gathering this knowledge is all well and good, but it is time for us to move on and continue getting through this place to, hopefully find Jaden, the person who we come here to find. Cypher's thought before this he was lawful neutral. So he sees it as just an illogical thing to kill so many people when there's so much more use that you could get out of them by taking them in and using what it is that they use. Now there might be a little bit more of a subjugation bent in his thought process. Something along the lines of, not destroying them means that we can kind of take them for what they're worth. And so if they don't die now, they can die later. That should be rather terrifying, all things considered. But that is my little take on that, as Cypher suggests that they move on.
Okay. Are you all done picking at whatever could be here still, or your
I've done the
pace, your
reading.
discovery? It's up to you. There could be nothing. There could be 100 things. I just want to make sure that you're moving at the pace you want to move at.
Now that I'm up here, I'll take one more look around. Just to make sure that there's nothing else that catches my eye in here. Because I'm nothing if not thorough. And even though we've been here for a little while, I want to make sure that we've got everything before we move on.
Okay. Yeah, so you make a... I want you to make a perception. However, this is going to be a straight-up perception. Because while you would normally be getting advantage, as you ascend higher, similar to what you see in the picture here, it seems to be getting darker. However, it's not just darkness, because you don't really have a problem with that.
I don't have a problem with any kind of darkness.
It's a blackness. Like, it is a
Like a
physical
void.
manifestation of not just a lack of light. It is just a presence, an inky void. But it's not a void, because it's something. But it's just almost like a fog, like a thin fog up at the top. So you can still see through it, but it's enough it would give you disadvantage to counter your advantage for a straight up roll.
Okay. Yeah, so it's more like a black haze that's not darkness. And it's more obscuring than it is actual, like, lack of light.
Yes.
Okay. But now I roll it straight up. 22.
All right.
I'm a Beauty boy. Makes sense. All I've got is eyeballs.
You notice that there are more names. However, these aren't dwarven names, because these are names etched into these gigantic pillars. And they are written in both giant and draconic.
Ooh. You're muted.
Yeah, I can't
Well,
hear you.
it's a good thing that I can just straight up read and speak Draconic.
They come across in your magical translation as names.
Oh, that's not even my magical translation. I just know Draconic, like as a language. The giant stuff I'll have to use Eyes of the Runekeeper for, but I actually have Draconic as a language proficiency.
The eyes would kick in a bit because this is not a 1-for-1. I mean, you can.
So it's like an old.
You're still getting this is an older script, but you know the names seem to check out, or the sounds do, but maybe the way that they're etched is different. So yeah, it's Draconic. You know it. It collaborates, but you do have to kind of get a little bit of like your invocation boost.
I've got both of the things required for that, and I'm definitely gonna need it for the giant because I don't know giant at all. But that's a thing. So yeah, this is also a list of names.
They're not teaming like the dwarven names where they're just stacked. We're talking each of these pillars has a name on them.
A single name.
Yes.
Okay. I would like to get a note of these names.
Okay. I mean, we'll say that you have them. I don't have an exhaustive list for you at the moment, but nothing is gonna click over in your mind as oh wow, this is.
Yeah, just making sure that I didn't see a name like Symphonics or something like that. Or Shonaruth.
No Shonaruth. Symphonics, no. But even, well, it would be out of character for the professor, but for Mr. Halver, obviously Halver's probably not a draconic name, so that was an adopted one.
That was an adopted name, so whatever his true name was, which we don't know.
Yeah, I don't really know if would I have heard that at some point?
His real name?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
But no, I'll make a note of the names before floating back down and back into telepathy range and sharing that there are names in Draconic and Giant scripts up there.
So these names in Draconic do they look like names of dragons, or like just names that happen to be in Draconic? Like they could be dragonborn, or like humans from the ancient times when dragons ruled the earth?
The way that they were pronounced by the professor would lead you that they are more naturally produced from an elongated face. So these are most likely dragon names.
Okay.
Now, I mean, could there have been an esteemed human that they put up there? I guess, if there was a draconic name, but
basically they're names of dragons. Yeah, okay.
But most likely they're names of dragons themselves.
Okay. Yeah. I'd be sharing these names and that they're in Draconic and Giant scripts, and that the Draconic script is old. Like, the way that the runes are etched are old. Very old.
Okay.
Also, the party gets to learn a little bit of something about me, and that, could actually speak Draconic.
So,
Fun.
okay. So what we might be looking at here is, I mean, if those are the names of dragons and giants, we could be looking at almost like a war memorial inscribed into this. Are there any legends of dwarves fighting in the ancient battles?
Mm-mm.
Yeah. Okay. So,
Did we spy anything of dwarven make in the war zone that we passed through, the wasteland that we passed through, the one that was full of dead bodies and weapons?
No.
Okay. So they were clearly absent from that.
Casimir,
interesting.
you can confirm with all your kind of snuffling around. There's just hundreds of different footprints, and you are finding that they are human, though some of them look human, but a little bit different. Maybe you've met a dwarf in your life, you know. I know you're still a young man at like 150, but you know.
135.
No, I'm sorry, 135. Yeah, so yeah, you're a young man. You're entering your prime here. And maybe these footprints would be dwarven?
Consistent with dwarvish stature.
But yeah,
I see.
the dwarves have a distinct absence in Mesotopian and beyond the folklore, Mesomascan history and legend. Casimir, I will also add, by the way, as you're an elf, you have feet. You probably know as a tracker what your footprints look like, as well as, you know, those of many other elves in sand and other places. You're not seeing any elven footprints. You're not seeing any, maybe a tiefling every once in a while gets a droopy tail. It's a natural thing. It happens. Hey, don't judge. So you're not finding any sort of like tail swishes on the floor.
Aside from Mordecai,
aside from Mordecai. You're not finding any sort of anything that might be on the heavier footprint, like orc or dragonborn, or it just seems to be humans and dwarves. And then, of course, there's these claw scrapings, whatever they are. And as you've been sort of pacing here, you do see, moreover, in this lane, out of this gate, you are finding footprints that are very large, but more human in shape.
They would probably tell this to the others. Seems mostly just humans and dwarves.
that's the people who've been here. But it's been so long since anybody's been here, it looks like. This place is ancient. Whatever it is.
This gives me a really bad out of character feeling, but I'll speak about that when we go on break. For now, Bright, do you have any other ideas as to what this could be? Is it just the things we found?
Not really. I mean, I thought it might be the memorial or something along those lines, but it seems like it's not because the dwarves weren't involved. The only other thing I can think of is it could be like a hall of, not like a war memorial, but maybe just like a history record. Maybe the dwarves are even more ancient than we thought, and
Maybe.
I don't know. I don't remember there ever being a time when dwarves were like the leaders, right? They've always just kind of been around. So the idea of this being like a list of kings, say first dragons and then giants and then dwarves, or maybe the other way around. That doesn't seem to really to follow. Although, given how old this is, we're probably reading names from, tens of thousands of years ago.
Pre-Mesoamerican history, pre-Mesopotamian history.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mesopotamy is fairly, comparatively speaking to Shadowhar, it's newer settled.
Right. Yeah. Shadahar's super old.
Shadowhar was around before Mesotopia/Mesomasca.
Quite a time before that too. Oh, there's all that
We might be
pops into my brain.
looking at pre-Shadowhar. Maybe. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe.
Speculation. That's for archaeologists to find out. Isn't that right, Professor?
Yes. Well, I mean, I am one of those of a sort, so,
On the weekends.
on the weekends and holidays. But, no, for now, I think we must keep going. We need to come here to do a mission, and I'm sure there'll be more to find.
Alright. Well, then I'll tell you what. Why don't we get up and take a 10-15 minute break to eat, drink, be merry. Have dread about what you might find later on, which is 10-15 minutes from now. So for all of you out there in the audience, you take a break, go do what you got to do, and I'll give you a little bit of a warning before we come back, and then we will continue to solve a mystery or rewrite history.
Yeah.
Woo.